There's a reason why most people never reach their goals. It's not because they're lazy. It's not because they lack talent. It's because they rely too much on motivation. And motivation is unreliable. Think about it. How many times have you started something with excitement, a new workout plan, a side hustle, or a self-improvement journey, only to lose steam a few weeks later? Meet David. David was determined to lose weight. He hit the gym with fire in his eyes, waking up at 5 a.m. every day. For the first 2 weeks, he was unstoppable. But then life happened. Late nights at work, a cold that drained his energy, and suddenly, the excuses piled up. He told himself he'd get back on track when he felt motivated again. Months passed. David never returned to the gym. Now here's the truth. Motivation is a spark. Powerful, but short-lived. Consistency, on the other hand, is the slow-burning fire that keeps you moving forward, even when motivation disappears. In this video, I'll show you how to force yourself to stay consistent, even when you don't feel like it. You'll discover practical strategies rooted in Stoic philosophy that will reshape your mindset and transform your life. Have you ever faced this struggle? Share your story in the comments below, and stay with me, because the best part is yet to come. 1. Motivation versus consistency. Most people believe success starts with motivation, that powerful surge of excitement that makes you feel unstoppable. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Motivation is unreliable. It's unstable. It comes and goes like a gust of wind. Now imagine this. Lisa was ambitious. She had a dream to write her first book. For weeks, she was on fire. Each morning, she'd wake up early, pour a cup of coffee, and write for hours. Words flowed effortlessly. She felt invincible. But then life happened. One morning, her alarm rang and she hit snooze. Just 5 more minutes, she told herself. The next day, it was 10 minutes. Before long, the excitement was gone. "I'll write when I feel inspired again," she whispered. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Her dream, that once burned so brightly, quietly faded into the background. Lisa didn't fail because she lacked talent. She failed because she depended on motivation, and motivation betrayed her. Motivation feels good, but it's unreliable. It's emotional. It's fleeting. Consistency, however, doesn't care how you feel. It doesn't rely on excitement, passion, or energy. It's not about feeling inspired. It's about showing up, even when you're tired, unmotivated, or overwhelmed. Especially then. This is what separates those who succeed from those who quit. The people who reach their goals aren't the ones who always feel motivated. They're the ones who stay disciplined even when they don't feel like it. Think about the most successful athletes, entrepreneurs, or artists you know. They aren't fueled by constant excitement. They're powered by something stronger, the discipline to push forward when things get hard. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed emotions, like excitement, frustration, or doubt, are fleeting and unreliable. Epictetus taught that true strength comes from mastering your emotions, not surrendering to them. He once said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." What he meant was simple. Success doesn't come from chasing feelings. It comes from mastering your ability to persist regardless of them. When you train yourself to act despite your emotions, you unlock real power. You become steady, unshakable. You stop relying on bursts of motivation and start building habits that carry you forward, no matter what. Imagine you're standing in front of a mountain. Motivation is like sprinting toward that mountain, full of energy and excitement, only to run out of breath halfway up. Consistency is different. It's slower, quieter. But it's the force that keeps you climbing when your legs burn, your mind screams for you to quit, and your excitement is long gone. When you understand this, something shifts inside you. You stop waiting for the perfect mood. You stop telling yourself, "I'll do it when I feel ready." Instead, you decide, "I'll do it now." A man who lifts weights once a week will never see results. But the man who lifts 3 times a week, even when he's tired, sore, or unmotivated, becomes stronger week after week. It's not because he always feels inspired. It's because he shows up regardless of how he feels. The same goes for your goals. Writing a book, building a business, fixing a broken relationship. None of these things are achieved by waiting for motivation to strike. They happen when you show up, over and over again, even when it's hard. Some days you'll feel powerful, inspired, on fire. but most days you won't. And that's where consistency matters most. Seneca once said, "He who is brave is free." Brave enough to push through discomfort, brave enough to face boredom, brave enough to act when it's easier to make excuses. Every time you act without waiting for motivation, you prove to yourself that you're stronger than your feelings. And here's the unexpected part. When you commit to consistency, something amazing happens. Motivation starts to follow. When you force yourself to show up, day after day, your mind shifts. You start to believe in yourself. Doubt fades, excitement grows, and what once felt impossible becomes effortless. Lisa eventually learned this. Months after abandoning her dream, she made a choice. She didn't wait for inspiration to return. She simply decided to write 30 minutes a day, no matter what, rain or shine, inspired or exhausted. Some mornings she hated it. The words felt stiff and lifeless, but she kept going. Slowly, her confidence grew. The words flowed easier. She no longer needed to feel motivated because she had built momentum. A year later, she finished her book, not because she relied on excitement, but because she relied on consistency. Motivation is a spark. It feels powerful, but it burns out quickly. Consistency is the slow-burning flame that never dies, if you commit to feeding it every single day. If you've been waiting for motivation to return, stop. Start now. Small steps done consistently will build momentum, and that momentum will transform your life. The question is simple. Can you push yourself to act when you don't feel like it? Because that's what will separate you from everyone else still waiting for the right moment. 2. Building the habit of showing up. People often believe success requires grand gestures, massive bursts of effort, dramatic breakthroughs, or life-altering decisions. But the truth is far simpler and far less exciting. Success is built on one thing: showing up again and again, even when you don't feel like it. Take James, for example. He wanted to get in shape. He bought new workout gear, signed up for a gym membership, and even mapped out a detailed fitness plan. For the first week, he crushed it. Intense workouts, clean meals, full commitment. He felt unstoppable. But soon, things changed. He overslept one morning and told himself he'd work out later, but never did. The next day, his body felt sore, so he skipped again. By the third day, excuses came easily. "I'm too tired, I'll get back to it when I have more time, I just don't feel motivated." Days turned into weeks. His workout plan? Forgotten. James fell into the same trap that holds so many people back, waiting to feel ready. He thought results came from perfect conditions, clear schedules, boundless energy, and flawless discipline. But that's not how progress works. The truth is, showing up, even in your worst moments, is what makes the difference. Consistency isn't about intensity, it's about reliability. The Stoics understood this well. They believed waiting for the perfect mood was a dangerous illusion, a mindset that traps you in procrastination. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, 'I am rising to fulfill my purpose.'" He didn't say, "Wait until you feel motivated." He didn't say, "Start when you're inspired." He said, "Get up, do what needs to be done." That's the key. Removing emotions from the equation. Feel tired? Show up anyway. Don't feel inspired? Show up anyway. Don't know if you're doing it right? Show up anyway. When you train yourself to show up without excuses, you build momentum. The act itself becomes automatic. Like brushing your teeth or locking your door before bed, it stops feeling like a decision and starts feeling like a reflex. A friend of mine once decided to write a novel. He didn't aim for 1,000 words a day. Instead, he set a goal so simple that failure wasn't even an option. Write one sentence every day. Just one. There were days he wrote that one sentence and walked away. But most days, once he started, he kept going. A sentence became a paragraph. A paragraph became a page. One small action led to another. And eventually, he had a finished novel. Not because he felt inspired, but because he showed up when inspiration was nowhere to be found. That's the power of building the habit of showing up. You strip away the pressure. You remove the excuses. You stop relying on the right moment, and instead, you create the right moment by acting now. The Stoics believed that action itself was the cure for overthinking. They knew that hesitation feeds doubt, and doubt breeds paralysis. When you start small, when you focus not on results but on simply showing up, You silence that doubt. You no longer waste energy debating whether you feel like it, you just do it. This mindset changes everything. Suddenly, progress stops feeling overwhelming. No longer are you chasing some distant goal. You're simply committing to one action, one step, one moment of effort. Over time, those moments build. Discipline strengthens, progress compounds, and most importantly, your mind begins to change. You stop identifying as someone who tries. Instead, you become someone who shows up. That shift is powerful, because when you start seeing yourself as consistent, quitting no longer feels natural. Skipping a workout doesn't feel like relief. It feels like a betrayal of who you are. James eventually learned this. He stopped chasing motivation and instead focused on one rule: get to the gym. No matter what, even if it's just for 10 minutes. Some days that's all he did. 10 minutes, then he'd leave. But most days, once he started, he found himself staying longer. Not because he felt motivated, but because action triggered momentum. 6 months later, James wasn't just in better shape. He was stronger mentally. He had trained himself to show up, even when he didn't feel like it. That's the real breakthrough. If you've been waiting for inspiration, stop. If you've been waiting to feel ready, stop. The only way to build momentum is to start, right now, exactly where you are. Don't aim for perfect results. Don't expect to feel excited every day. Just commit to this, show up, no matter how small the effort, and repeat it tomorrow. Because once you build that habit, everything changes. Showing up becomes automatic. Progress becomes inevitable. And soon, you'll look back, stronger, sharper, and wiser, wondering why you waited so long to begin. 3. The value of discipline. Discipline is often misunderstood. People imagine it as a rigid, joyless grind, an endless cycle of sacrifice and self-denial. But that's not what true discipline is. Real discipline isn't about punishment, it's about power. It's the quiet strength that turns your intentions into actions and your goals into reality. Think of a river carving its path through solid rock. It doesn't happen overnight. The river doesn't rage or thrash wildly. Instead, it flows, steadily, relentlessly, day after day. That quiet persistence, that steady force, is what breaks through the hardest obstacles. Discipline works the same way. It's not about pushing yourself to extremes. It's about showing up, day after day, even when you'd rather quit. It's the force that keeps you moving forward when your mind is full of excuses. Most people fail not because they're incapable, but because they rely too much on motivation. Motivation is like a firework, bright, powerful, but gone in seconds. Discipline is the slow, steady flame that never burns out. It's the habit of doing what must be done, even when it's uncomfortable. The Stoics believed this deeply. They knew emotions were unpredictable. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." What he meant was simple. Discipline isn't about controlling the world. It's about mastering yourself. That's why discipline matters more than motivation. Motivation depends on how you feel. Discipline doesn't care. It's there when you're tired. It's there when you're stressed. It's there when self-doubt whispers in your ear, telling you to give up. Discipline is what stops you from breaking your promises, especially the ones you make to yourself. Without it, your goals are just wishes. Your plans are just ideas. But when you build discipline, those ideas turn into results. Imagine standing at the base of a mountain. Motivation is like a rush of energy that makes you sprint toward the top. But what happens when you get tired? Without discipline, you'll stop. You'll turn around and walk back down. But discipline, that's different. It's not about sprinting. It's about taking one steady step after another, no matter how steep the climb. Discipline turns excuses into action. When you're tired, discipline says, do a little. When you're overwhelmed, it says, just start. When you feel stuck, it says, one step at a time. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to happen. And that's the beauty of discipline. It builds momentum. Each small act reinforces the habit. Each choice strengthens your resolve. Eventually, discipline stops feeling like a struggle. It becomes automatic. Athletes know this well. They don't always feel like training, but they know skipping practice means falling behind. So they train anyway, tired, sore, or frustrated. Not because they feel inspired, but because they refuse to let their emotions dictate their actions. Writers know this too. They don't wait for the perfect idea to strike. They write, even when their words feel awkward and forced, because they know progress is built on effort, not perfection. Discipline isn't glamorous. No one cheers when you wake up early to work out or when you choose to stay late and finish a project. No one sees those moments, but they matter. They build strength in silence. The Stoics believed in this kind of quiet strength. They knew discipline was more than just a tool. It was a way of life. Epictetus taught that true freedom comes from mastering your impulses. He warned that without discipline, we become slaves to our emotions, chasing comfort, avoiding discomfort, and sabotaging our own potential. Discipline isn't about denying yourself joy. It's about choosing long-term fulfillment over short-term comfort. It's about trading fleeting pleasure for lasting pride. When you train yourself to act, even when you don't feel like it, something powerful happens. You prove to yourself that your feelings don't control you. You realize you're stronger than your doubts, your fears, and your excuses. Discipline is freedom. The freedom to choose growth over comfort. The freedom to stay calm when life feels chaotic. The freedom to stay true to your goals, even when no one's watching. If you've struggled to stay consistent, start small. Don't try to overhaul your entire life overnight. Pick one habit, one commitment, and stick to it. It could be waking up 30 minutes earlier. It could be reading 10 pages a day. It could be going for a walk after dinner. Whatever it is, keep showing up, no matter how small the effort. Each action strengthens your discipline. Each choice builds momentum. And over time, you'll become the kind of person who doesn't just make plans, you follow through. Because that's what discipline really is. The power to keep going when motivation disappears. The strength to stay committed when no one's watching. The courage to face resistance and push through it. And once you master that, there's nothing you can't achieve. 4. Momentum and progress. Success doesn't come from sudden breakthroughs. It comes from momentum, the quiet force that builds strength over time. Imagine pushing a heavy boulder. At first it feels impossible. You push with all your strength, but nothing moves. You keep pushing, harder, longer, and still nothing. Frustration creeps in. Doubt starts whispering in your mind. Maybe this isn't working. Maybe you're wasting your time. But then, almost unexpectedly, the boulder shifts, just a little. Encouraged, you keep pushing. Slowly, it starts to roll. Each step forward feels easier than the last. The momentum builds, and soon, the boulder is moving on its own, powered by the effort you've already invested. That's momentum. And once you have it, it carries you. The problem is most people quit before they reach that point. They push for a while, see no results, and stop. They assume nothing's happening, not realizing that progress was already taking place, quietly, beneath the surface. Momentum doesn't show itself right away. Progress is invisible in the beginning. The hours you put in, the workouts that don't show results, the late nights working on your craft, the endless practice that feels like it's going nowhere. All of it is building something. You just can't see it yet. The Stoics warned against chasing instant results. They knew true progress is built on patience and persistence. Epictetus taught that mastery comes from repetition, from doing the same thing over and over, even when results aren't obvious. Think about a tree. For months, you water it, care for it, but nothing appears to change. What you don't see is what's happening underground. Roots are spreading, growing deeper and stronger. Then one day, that tree shoots upward, seemingly overnight. But that overnight success was never sudden. It was the result of everything that came before. Unseen, but essential. Your life works the same way. Every time you choose consistency over comfort, you're strengthening those unseen roots. Each time you push yourself to act, even when you feel stuck, you're building momentum. And once momentum takes hold, progress becomes unstoppable. But momentum doesn't build itself. It requires a choice. The choice to push forward when nothing seems to be working. Athletes know this well. In the early days of training, the gains are slow. Strength doesn't come overnight. Each workout feels like a drop in the ocean, insignificant, invisible. But those drops build. Muscles grow. Endurance improves. One workout alone doesn't make a difference, but hundreds of them do. Writers experience the same thing. The first few pages feel awkward and forced. The words don't flow, sentences are clumsy, ideas unclear, but they keep writing, page after page, word after word, until one day something shifts, the writing flows easier, and their ideas sharpen. Momentum is what turns struggle into strength. The more you push forward, the less resistance you face. The mistake most people make is giving up right before the breakthrough. They stop because they assume their effort isn't paying off. They think nothing's happening, but progress is happening. It's just hidden. That's why consistency matters so much. Each time you choose to persist, you add to that invisible progress. You may not see it right away, but you will. Momentum doesn't come from motivation, it comes from action. And the best way to build momentum is to stop focusing on outcomes and start focusing on effort. Instead of asking, "Am I seeing results?" ask yourself, "Am I showing up?" Instead of wondering, "Is this working?" ask yourself, "Am I still moving forward?" That shift in focus is powerful. It takes your mind off the finish line and puts it back where it belongs, on the next step. The Stoics believed this was the key to peace of mind, focusing only on what you can control. You can't control how quickly results appear. You can't control how fast you improve, but you can control your effort. You can control your decision to keep pushing. And here's the truth. If you keep showing up, momentum will take over. The work that once felt exhausting will start to feel natural. The actions that once drained you will start to energize you. Progress that once felt impossible will start to unfold, faster than you expected. Momentum is powerful, but it's fragile. The moment you stop pushing, it fades. Skipping one workout seems harmless, but it breaks the chain. Putting off one important task seems minor, but it disrupts your flow. That's why protecting your momentum is crucial. Never underestimate the power of small actions. Even on your worst days, when you're tired, distracted, or overwhelmed, do something. Even if it's small, even if it feels insignificant. Because when you commit to acting, no matter what, you keep your momentum alive. And once you've built momentum, once your actions become automatic and your progress starts to accelerate, you'll realize something powerful. You're no longer pushing the boulder. The boulder is pushing you. 5. Consistency in the face of failure. Failure isn't the enemy. It's not a dead end. It's part of the path. Yet most people see failure as a sign to stop, a reason to give up. They take failure personally, as proof that they aren't good enough, smart enough, or strong enough. But failure doesn't mean you can't succeed. It only means you haven't succeeded yet. Imagine this. A sculptor works tirelessly on a block of stone. Each strike of the chisel chips away tiny fragments, almost invisible. He shapes, refines, and adjusts. Days pass, yet the stone looks the same. Frustration builds. Self-doubt creeps in. He questions if his efforts are pointless. But then, one strike lands and suddenly the stone splits perfectly. The shape he had envisioned reveals itself. Was that final strike the only one that mattered? No. Every failed attempt, every imperfect cut was necessary. Each one brought him closer to that moment of breakthrough. Failure works the same way. It's rarely the last attempt that creates success. It's the hundreds of small efforts before it. The moments you felt like you were wasting your time. The attempts that felt pointless. The days when nothing seemed to change. Most people give up in those moments. They assume failure is proof they're on the wrong path. But the Stoics believed otherwise. To the Stoics, failure was never personal. It was practical. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, the obstacle is not a reason to stop, it's part of the journey. Failure isn't proof you're losing, it's proof you're trying. When you embrace that mindset, failure stops feeling like defeat. It becomes feedback, information you can use to adjust, improve, and grow. The greatest achievers in history understood this. Thomas Edison famously failed over 1,000 times before creating a working light bulb. When asked how he kept going, he didn't describe failure as defeat. He said, "I haven't failed. I've just found 1,000 ways that don't work." He knew each attempt brought him closer to success. That's what consistency in the face of failure looks like. It's not about ignoring mistakes. It's about learning from them, adjusting, refining, and continuing to show up. The danger isn't failure itself, it's what failure can do to your mind. After a setback, your mind starts feeding you doubts. What's the point? Maybe I'm just not good enough. Why bother trying? That's when you must take control. The Stoics believed the mind could be trained, that you could choose your response to failure. Epictetus warned, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. When you face failure, two things will happen. Your emotions will scream at you to quit. But your discipline, your inner resolve, must remind you why you started. This is where consistency becomes your greatest weapon. It keeps you moving forward when self-doubt tells you to stop. A musician doesn't master their instrument by playing only when they feel confident. They practice through the frustration, hitting wrong notes, failing repeatedly, because they know that failure is part of the process. A business owner doesn't succeed by winning every deal. They face rejection, missteps, and slow progress. But they keep adapting. They don't see those setbacks as signs to quit. They see them as steps toward mastery. Your mindset shapes how you see those moments. If you treat failure as proof you're not capable, you'll quit early. But if you treat failure as a teacher, a necessary step toward growth, you'll keep pushing forward. The truth is, the most successful people aren't those who never fail. They're the ones who keep going when failure arrives. They understand that each attempt sharpens their skills. Each setback builds their resilience. Each failure strengthens their ability to push forward when others would walk away. So when failure comes, and it will, remember this. The moment you feel like quitting is often the moment before progress happens. It's the point where most people stop. But if you persist, you'll discover something powerful. Failure isn't the end. It's the bridge, the link between where you are and where you want to be. Every setback teaches you something. Every mistake strengthens you. Every failure is proof that you're still in the game. And as long as you're in the game, you haven't lost. The only true failure is giving up. Everything else, that's just progress in disguise. 6. The process over the outcome. People often get trapped by a dangerous mindset, obsessing over results while ignoring the process that leads to them. They chase outcomes, the perfect body, the dream career, the financial breakthrough. But when results don't come fast enough, frustration takes over. That frustration kills progress. They forget that growth doesn't happen overnight. Results are the byproduct, the consequence of the process. Imagine planting a seed. You water it every day, but for weeks, nothing happens. No leaves, no signs of growth. It's easy to believe you failed. But beneath the soil, something powerful is happening. Roots are spreading, building a foundation strong enough to support what's coming. Ignore that process, and you'll uproot the seed before it has a chance to grow. Success works the same way. The real progress, the changes that matter, start where no one can see. The early morning workouts, the hours spent refining your skills, the late nights building your craft. Nothing feels rewarding at first. It's slow, quiet, and exhausting. But this is where the magic happens. The Stoics understood this well. They believed real strength comes from focusing on what you can control. Your actions, your effort, your attitude. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." He didn't say worry about results. He said, do the work. This mindset changes everything. Instead of worrying about outcomes, you focus on effort. Because effort is the only thing within your control. A runner training for a marathon doesn't stare at the finish line every day. They focus on putting one foot in front of the other. A student preparing for an exam doesn't obsess over their final score. They focus on studying each chapter, taking one step at a time. By focusing on the process, you remove anxiety. You stop measuring your worth by instant results and instead commit to steady, deliberate progress. The Stoics believed this approach was the key to peace of mind. They knew that chasing outcomes creates stress, a constant pressure to arrive that leaves you restless and disappointed. But when you focus on the process, you stay grounded. The present moment becomes your focus, not some distant goal that feels out of reach. That's why embracing the process is so powerful. It allows you to succeed without chasing success. When you fall in love with the work itself, the daily grind, the quiet effort, you set yourself free. A friend of mine once decided to write a book. For months, he obsessed over the outcome. Publishing deals, bestseller lists, glowing reviews. But the more he focused on those things, the harder it became to write. He was overwhelmed by pressure, constantly questioning if his work was good enough. Eventually, he made a change. He stopped thinking about the book's success and started focusing on writing, just 500 words a day. No pressure, no expectations, just the process. Everything changed. Writing stopped feeling stressful. He stopped chasing perfection and simply showed up each day. Months later, his book was finished. Not because he forced it, but because he trusted the process. That's the truth most people miss. Success doesn't come from constantly chasing outcomes. It comes from committing to the process, day after day. The Stoics believe this mindset builds resilience. When you stop obsessing over results, failure loses its power. You no longer see setbacks as personal. You see them as part of the process. Seneca once wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." Growth requires discomfort. Struggle isn't something to avoid, it's something to embrace. Each setback sharpens you. Each challenge makes you stronger. But you only reach that point if you're willing to trust the process, even when nothing seems to be working. If you've been frustrated by slow progress, take a step back. Stop focusing on where you want to be. Start focusing on what you need to do today and repeat it tomorrow. Forget the finish line for now. Focus on the steps that will take you there. Because when you commit to the process, when you learn to love the quiet work that no one else sees, you stop relying on motivation and you start building momentum. And momentum, that's what turns effort into achievement. Not in days, not in weeks, but over time. Because real growth doesn't happen overnight. It happens quietly beneath the surface when you show up over and over again, even when the results aren't visible yet. 7. Accountability and discipline. Most people underestimate the power of accountability. They set goals in silence, make promises to themselves, and assume sheer willpower will keep them on track. But when no one's watching, it's easy to slip, to skip that workout, to put off that project, to fall back into bad habits. Accountability is what keeps you honest, especially when no one else is looking. It's the invisible force that holds you to your word. Imagine walking a tightrope. Without a safety net, every step feels terrifying. One wrong move and you fall. But with a net beneath you, something changes. Fear fades. You move with confidence, knowing that even if you slip, you won't hit the ground. Accountability is that safety net. It doesn't stop you from struggling, but it keeps you from quitting. The Stoics believe deeply in the power of self-accountability. Epictetus once said, "How long are you going to wait before you demand the best for yourself?" He didn't say, wait until someone else forces you to change. He said the responsibility starts with you, your choices, your discipline, your standards. Most people avoid this kind of self-honesty. It's uncomfortable to admit when you've been lazy or inconsistent. It's easier to make excuses, to blame circumstances, bad luck, or other people. But the Stoics rejected that mindset. They knew that the moment you stop blaming the outside world and start holding yourself accountable, everything changes. Accountability starts with standards, clear, non-negotiable standards that guide your behavior. It's not enough to say, "I'll try to be disciplined." You must define what that means. Waking up at 6 a.m. isn't a goal. It's a standard. Writing 500 words a day isn't a goal. It's a standard. Showing up to the gym 3 times a week, no excuses, isn't a goal. It's a standard. When you define those standards clearly, they stop being optional. You no longer debate with yourself. You no longer ask, "Do I feel like doing this today?" You just do it, because that's who you've decided to be. The Stoics believed that setting high standards wasn't just about success, it was about self-respect. Seneca wrote, "The greatest empire is to rule over oneself." That's what accountability gives you, control over your own mind. But here's the hard truth. No one will hold you accountable like you can hold yourself. Friends may encourage you, mentors may push you, but at the end of the day, you're the one who decides if you'll stay true to your word. That's why self-accountability requires discipline. Discipline is what turns promises into action. It's what gets you out of bed when your alarm rings. It's what makes you say no to distractions when your mind tells you to quit. Discipline isn't about feeling strong, it's about doing what's right even when you feel weak. A friend of mine once committed to running 5 kilometers every morning. No excuses, no exceptions. At first it felt impossible. On cold mornings, he wanted to stay in bed. On busy days, he wanted to skip. But he kept showing up, not because he felt motivated, but because he refused to break the standard he had set for himself. Months later, something shifted. He no longer had to force himself to run. It became automatic, a natural part of his day. His discipline had become a habit, something he did without thinking. That's the power of accountability. It's uncomfortable at first. It demands effort, focus, and self-honesty. But once you embrace it, once you hold yourself to higher standards, you become stronger. The Stoics believed this kind of strength was essential. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." By building accountability, you remove excuses. You stop waiting for the right mood. You stop relying on motivation to push you forward. Instead, you create a mindset where consistency is non-negotiable, where your standards guide you no matter how you feel. If you've struggled to stay consistent, start here. Raise your standards, write them down, make them real. Then, no matter what, follow through. Even on your worst days, show up. Even when you're tired, act. Because each time you keep your promise to yourself, you build trust. And that trust, that unshakable belief that you can rely on yourself, is what will carry you through the hardest moments. Accountability isn't just about results. It's about becoming someone you can be proud of. Someone who doesn't just set goals, but follows through with quiet, unstoppable discipline. 8. The role of failure in growth. Failure is painful. It stings. It makes you question everything, your ability, your decisions, and sometimes even your self-worth. That's why most people avoid it. They see failure as a warning sign, a signal that says, stop, turn back. This isn't working. But failure isn't a signal to quit. It's a signal to adapt, to adjust, and to keep moving forward, better and stronger than before. Imagine climbing a mountain. You slip on loose rocks, lose your footing, and slide back down. The fall hurts. But does that mean the summit is impossible? No, it only means the path you chose wasn't the right one. The goal hasn't changed, only the route. Failure works the same way. It's not the end of the journey, it's part of the journey. The Stoics understood this deeply. To them, failure wasn't something to fear, it was something to embrace. Marcus Aurelius believed setbacks were never wasted if you used them wisely. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." What he meant was simple. The obstacles you face are not there to stop you. They're there to shape you, to test your resolve, to force you to grow in ways you wouldn't have otherwise. That's why consistency in the face of failure is so important. Most people quit the moment things go wrong. They hit a setback, assume they've failed, and walk away. But the truth is, failure isn't failure unless you stop. Every misstep, every mistake, it's all feedback. It's information you can use to improve. Think about inventors. Thomas Edison didn't create the light bulb on his first attempt or his 100th. He tried over 1,000 different methods before he succeeded. Each failure wasn't wasted time. It was a step closer to his breakthrough. Athletes face this too. They train for months, sometimes years, for a single competition, only to lose. But they don't stop. They review their mistakes, adjust their techniques, and come back stronger. Writers know this feeling well. Draft after draft gets rejected. But they keep writing, sharpening their skills with each attempt, until eventually their words connect. Failure isn't a reason to quit, it's a reason to improve. Each setback reveals something you didn't know before. Each mistake shows you what needs to change. The Stoics believed that success doesn't come from avoiding failure, it comes from learning how to face it with calmness and clarity. Seneca once wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." Failure is that difficulty. It's uncomfortable, but it's where you build resilience. But resilience doesn't come naturally. It's built through consistent effort, through showing up even when things aren't working. A friend of mine once launched a business. He poured everything into it, his time, his energy, his savings. For months, nothing happened. Customers didn't show up. His confidence crumbled. Failure felt inevitable. But instead of quitting, he tried something different. He changed his strategy. He asked for advice. He adjusted his marketing, refined his product, and kept showing up, even when doubt screamed at him to stop. It took nearly a year, but the breakthrough came. Customers started to notice, sales picked up, and eventually, that business turned into something successful. Not because it was easy, but because he refused to let failure define him. That's what separates those who succeed from those who don't. Successful people aren't the ones who avoid failure. They're the ones who refuse to stop when failure arrives. The Stoics taught that when things fall apart, when life throws unexpected challenges your way, your response matters more than the setback itself. When you fail, two things can happen. You can see it as proof that you're not capable, or you can treat it as part of the process. Failure will test you. It will challenge your patience, your confidence, and your belief in yourself. But if you meet it with discipline, if you respond with consistency instead of giving up, failure loses its power. So when failure comes, and it will, don't see it as a wall. See it as a door that opens only when you push through. Because failure isn't what ends your journey. It's what teaches you how to finish it. The path to lasting success isn't built on moments of motivation. It's built on the quiet strength of consistency. It's the decision to show up again and again, no matter how difficult or discouraging the journey becomes. Motivation may spark your ambition, but only consistency can carry you forward when that spark fades. Discipline, the ability to act even when you don't feel like it, is what strengthens that consistency. And when you combine those two with accountability, something powerful happens. You stop relying on willpower alone and start trusting in the habits you've built. When setbacks come, and they will, remember that failure isn't a sign to quit. It's a reminder that growth takes time. The Stoics believed that obstacles aren't barriers, they're stepping stones. Each challenge sharpens your mind. Each setback builds your strength. But none of this happens overnight. Like building muscle, consistency requires practice. It requires showing up when no one's watching, when you're tired, when progress feels invisible. So here's the challenge. Start small. Choose one habit, one commitment, and stick with it. Even if the results seem slow, trust that your effort is building something stronger beneath the surface. And as you move forward, remember this. Success isn't about achieving one grand moment of victory. It's about becoming the kind of person who shows up every day, no matter what. If you've faced setbacks or struggles, I'd love to hear your story. Share your experiences in the comments, because your journey might be the inspiration someone else needs to keep going.